Hello and welcome to round 9 of the Pecking Order show. Jake, what is this show all about?
Cody, geez, jumping straight to me this week. Well, it's about the TPO Rankings, the Pecking Order Rankings, where we talk about essentially the FIFA World Rankings, but for Australian football clubs. How'd I do?
Perfect, you can do it from now on. No, awesome. No, welcome guys, and yeah, Jake is right about the TPO rankings. Yeah, essentially FIFA World Rankings, but for the top 200 clubs around Australia, and hopefully soon 1,000 plus clubs around Australia. But as always, stay tuned for that. That's a work in progress. Round 9 of the Pecking Order show. We're looking at the clubs proving the TPO rankings wrong. The clubs that are throwing a spanner in the works and making Jake look like a fool and destroy everything he's worked so hard to create. And by extension, myself a little bit as well.
Let's go easy.
Yeah. We'll get into that. But first, of course, we had a massive weekend of games. Last week, we previewed 16 games. They're up here on the whiteboard behind me, where we went us toe-to-toe, us versus you guys, the TPO supporters. On Instagram stories, you guys voted, and so did we. And yeah, like I said, 16 games. Let's see how we all did. So we'll just run through. I guess I'll just do all my games first, Jake, and then is that how we've got it laid out here? And then you can jump into yours after that.
Something like that. Let's start that way and see how we go.
Yeah, you just comment along, Jake, because you're the stats man. So let's jump in. So in the Queensland NPL, Brisbane City versus Olympic. Olympic got up 3-1. Now, they were predicted to win that game. TPO, we predicted that Olympic would win. 67% of you guys also voted that way. So, yeah, one apiece there. We both got that one right. Jake, anything to add?
No, Olympic staying 31st in the TPO rankings. Brisbane City dropped some TPO points, but actually ended up moving up the rankings a little bit because that's in the last 7 days because they won an FFA Cup game. So,
okay, yeah, that makes sense. Cool. Next game. Same league, Queensland NPL, Southwest Queensland Thunder, the Toowoomba-based team, versus Moreton Bay Jets. Jets were heavy favourites, 78.9% predicted to win that game. It actually ended 1-1. So yeah, we predicted Moreton Bay. You guys also jumped on the Moreton Bay train, or the Moreton Bay Jet, and with 70% of you guys predicting them to win. So we were both, I guess, wrong, but in this system, in the Instagram stories, the rule is you've only got two options, a winner or, one way or the other. There's no draw, so we just scrapped that game completely. So we're still on 1-1. Jake, movements up the rankings for those two teams?
Yeah, so Southwest Queensland getting a draw, unexpected, so they actually get some movement up the rankings, so 6 spots up to 134th. Moreton Bay dropped 3 points or 3 spots to 36th.
Yep, okay. Over to Perth, over to the Western Australian League, NPL. Bayswater, massive game here. The top 2 ranked teams in Western Australia, aside from obviously Perth Glory, A-League team. Bayswater, who were ranked in at 28th, versus Perth, who were ranked in at 30th. So they're really combating each other there and pushing for the top 25. We predicted Bayswater to get up slightly. They were at home. You guys slightly, 52% of you voted also Bayswater. Now, Perth Soccer Club got up 2-1 and basically they're swapped places, so that's pretty interesting. So Bayswater are now down to 30th in the rankings. Perth Soccer Club up to 28th, so direct swap there. Pretty interesting there, hey Jake?
Yeah, so Perth, I think last week we were talking about Bayswater, potentially pushing for the top 25. They lose one game, and all of a sudden we're talking about Perth Soccer Club being that team. Yeah. And it's interesting to see 52% of supporters picked Bayswater, so it was very close. So congratulations to the 48% that got that one right, and probably need to have a word.
But it still counts as wrong for.
That's right. Have a word to the rest of the supporters.
Yep. So it still counts as wrong. So we're still on 1 out of 2 games because we ruled out that second game there. Now on to same league, Subiaco versus Stirling Lions. Now the result was 1-0 to Stirling Lions, which we predicted Stirling Lions, and 54% of you also voted for Stirling Lions. So we both get a point there. Jake, what happened in the rankings for Subiaco and Stirling Lions?
So Subiaco were 109th, dropped a couple spots to 111th, and Stirling Lions actually moved up 7 places to 84th from 91st. So bit of movement, particularly for Stirling.
Cool. To the A-League, Perth Glory versus Brisbane Roar. You probably all know how this ended. Brisbane Roar got up 3-2 and actually snuck into the 6th place, into the final spot. Now, we predicted a Perth Glory win, and 52% of you guys voted Perth. A lot of close votes this week. 52% of you voted Perth Glory, so we both got those wrong. Now, Jake, what happened in the rankings there?
Yeah, so Perth Glory dropped 2 spots. They're down to 8th in the TPO rankings, and obviously their season's now finished, so they'll stay on the TPO score they're on right now until, I guess, FFA Cup games start again. And Brisbane up 2 places to 5th, obviously with a final still to come against Melbourne City. And a stat that I saw, just a shout out to Andrew Howe, the Stato guy for most of the A-League and NSL data, he mentioned that with Brisbane all making the finals, I'm not sure exactly the number of seasons, it was maybe 8 seasons in a row.
8 in a row.
Yeah, so that makes them the highest in National League history, behind only Adelaide City, who did it, I think, 11 seasons in a row, made the finals. So, interesting stat there.
Yeah, cool. Sydney Olympic beat Blacktown City 1-0. What a game this was. I watched a bit of the live stream, or the replay of the live stream. Massive result for Sydney Olympic, who were not favourites for that game by any stretch. Blacktown, obviously one of the best teams in the country, not just in the A-League, not just in the NPL, but also even above some of those A-League clubs. So we obviously predicted Blacktown City. 62% of you guys voted for Blacktown City as well. So we both got that wrong. Jake, I see you've got written here Olympic up, I think, 1 spot. And what happened to Blacktown?
So they've dropped down to 13th. So they're still above Central Coast Mariners, but they've dropped below Apia Leichhardt. So Apia becomes the highest ranked club in New South Wales outside the A-League.
Cool. All right, next game, same league, New South Wales NPL. Now, Sydney United 58 versus Wollongong Wolves shaped up to be a really good game. Sydney United getting up 2-0. We predicted that they would, and 85% of you guys, very strong, no one backing the Wolves. 85% of you guys also voted Sydney United. Now, so we both got that right. So Sydney United, they remain in 16th, but are less than 1 TPO point behind Adelaide City. Now, guys, they're on over 2,000 TPO points, so 1 point is absolutely nothing. So they're very close to breaking into the top 15, and Wolves dropped 2 spots to 34th. Let me finish up with my final game here. Monaro Panthers, my favourite team. Well, they were anyway.
Shortly.
Versus Canberra FC. They were 7.7% probability to win in this. They went down 3-0, was it? I think in the end?
It was.
Yeah, 3-0 to Canberra FC. I'm really disappointed in the TPO supporters. I mean, they're obviously more brains than heart. You guys voted, 86% of you voted for Canberra FC. Just can't believe it.
Even after you gave them the hard sell to go for Monaro as well.
Exactly. No one respects my point of view, clearly. Now, Canberra up 6 spots to 80th. Jake, I think you've got written here, they're the second highest club in the ACT behind Canberra Olympic, who are still a bunch of spots above that. I think they're up in 50s. I'll let you cover that in a second because I know they're one of your games. Monaro fall back to where they were, or one even below, to 190th. Now, Jake, I think you've got about 8 games as well. Let's run through them.
All right, so back to Queensland, went into the FQPL, the second tier there, and we had Holland Park Hawks versus the Wolves. And the result here, a high-scoring game. Wolves got up 5-4, and we, being TPO, predicted a Holland Park win, and the supporters actually went for Wolves, 66% of you. So in this game, the supporters got it right, and TPO got it wrong. Result of that one was that Wolves have moved up about 4 spots. They're now 164th on the TPO rankings, and Holland Park have continued their descent, which has been going for a number of weeks now. So they've dropped another 7 places, and they're now down to 148th. And in the same league there, the FQPL, we had South United against Sunshine Coast Wanderers. This was predicted to be a pretty close game, and it turned out that way. So we had Souths as the slight favourites being at home, despite being a little bit lower on the rankings. So that home advantage gave them the favourite tag slightly. And Souths ended up winning that 1-0. So TPO predicted that one correct. Supporters actually went Sunshine Coast Wanderers. So
Yep.
It's,
we got one up.
We got one back because
We got one back.
Supporters got the last one.
Yeah.
So impact of that is that Souths moved up one place to 146th on the rankings.
Yep.
Wanderers dropped 8 places to 144.
Wow.
So those clubs very close now on the rankings. I think it's about 5 TPO points difference there. Moving over to the West Coast in the WA NPL, we had the Perth Glory youth team against Sorrento, and this is one where we had on form. Perth Glory were probably looking the better, but TPO Rankings had Sorrento as the favourites. And so TPO, obviously Sorrento supporters went along with us on this one. So 58% of you said Sorrento were going to win, and we both got it wrong. The Glory Youth got up 6-1, so it was quite an easy win in the end. And look, Glory is one of those clubs or the youth team that is really shooting up the rankings at the moment, and they're up another 16 places, so a big jump, up to 82nd. And Sorrento fell 7 spots to 65th. On the rankings, so still above Perth Glory Youth, but they're on their way.
Yep.
Next up, we had in Northern New South Wales, Broadmeadow Magic, Charlestown City Blues. The Broadmeadow Magic were favourites here by the TPO probabilities. They were ranked 40th going in, and Charlestown ranked 88th. The supporters, 75% of you also voted Broadmeadow Magic, so they went along with us. And Broadmeadow got the result 1-0, so we both picked up a point there. And Broadmeadow pushed up the TPO rankings on the back of that to 39th, and they've actually put themselves above Land and Jaffas in the same league in Northern New South Wales. So Broadmeadow are now the second highest ranked club in Northern New South Wales. However, short-lived that will be. Those clubs have been jumping around the last few weeks. Moving on still, so New South Wales now into NPL 2. We had Blacktown Spartans and Canterbury Bankstown, and this was another one that was predicted to be close. So we had Blacktown Spartans at home with the slight favourites, and the supporters, 62% of you went with us as well and picked the Spartans. Canterbury won that one 3-1, so we were both wrong, and Spartans on the back of that loss fell 4 places to 126th. And Canterbury were up 8 places, so they actually had a bit of a jump there to 115th. So Canterbury jump ahead of Blacktown Spartans on the rankings and moving closer to that top 100. I think we're getting through there now, just a couple to go. So over to Victoria, we had in the NPL Port Melbourne and Dandenong Thunder. We had TPO predicted Dandenong, even though they were away, to be slight favourites. The supporters in this one went against us and picked Port Melbourne Sharks. So 68% of you picked Port Melbourne. And Dandenong got up 3-1. So this is one where TPO picked up a point on the supporters, and I think we needed it because we were down going into this week. And on the back of that, Port Melbourne dropped 4 spots in the TPO rankings, and Dandenong Thunder went up 4 spots. So Dandenong Thunder, I don't know about you, Cody, this is probably one of those teams I'd heard about, but not really following the Victorian NPL until the last couple of seasons. Didn't really know much about, and yet they're ranked 41st in the entire country. So it's, interesting. There's probably a couple of clubs like that we don't know a lot about that are ranked very highly. Might try and cover some of those in the next couple of weeks.
Yep.
Okay, moving on. Victorian NPL 2, we had Altona Magic against Box Hill United. And Box Hill were slight favourites on the TPO rankings, but Altona Magic being one of those clubs that's moving up or getting some good results. This is one where the supporters were undecided, but 52% of you went with Box Hill, same as us, and we both got it wrong. So sorry to the 48% that got it right, but Altona Magic...
That was only right at the end too. I think the night before, with a few hours to go, it was 50-50. I think it was even an Altona for a little while there, but some late voters came in and swung it towards Box Hill.
There you go. Should have gone the other way. Altona, with that win, kept climbing up the rankings, so they're up a number of spots up to 142nd, and Box Hill have fallen a little bit further. Okay, and on to the last game that we had this weekend in ACT. We had Woden Western and Canberra Olympic. So Canberra Olympic, the highest ranked club in ACT at that point, they were 50th going into the game. We predicted an Olympic win, and supporters also picked Canberra Olympic in that one. and Canberra Olympic got up 3-2. So we were both right, picked up a point, and Canberra Olympic up one spot to 49th. So, as we said before, they're the highest ranked ahead of Canberra FC that we touched on before. And
another 30 spots behind.
So another few points up there. So, yeah, a lot of games, but we got through them and some interesting results.
Yeah, so guys, it ended up out of 16 games, one got scrapped for being a draw. So 15 games, you guys got 7 right, we got 8 right. So, and before leading into this weekend, you were on 8 and we were on 7. So add them together, it's 15 each. So we're 15 all. Heading into the next week, so we will have some more games to vote on for this week. But now we're going into part 2 of the show, where I mentioned up front, there's a few teams out there making a mockery of the TPO rankings and everything Jake stands for as a person, really attacking his credibility.
Harsh.
So Jake, who are these clubs and what's going on?
All right, let's clarify a little bit, but I'm not going to say that you're wrong entirely. So what we're looking at here are the teams that have had the biggest movement in the TPO rankings, up or down, this year in 2018 so far. So basically it'll be as a result of either new clubs come into the rankings and have come in at a position that maybe wasn't quite right, and the first few rounds have pushed them up or down a long way, or we've just had clubs that during the off-season have picked up new players, lost players, and have come out either much better or maybe worse than they were last season. So they've moved a lot. So look, I've pulled out those biggest movers of the year, and I guess before I get into it, I'll challenge you, Cody, just to put you on the spot. We've kind of been looking at the results since the start of the season. So if I was to put you on the spot and ask who you think are the biggest movers, or the clubs that probably have won a lot or lost a lot of games, who, give me a few names and I'll see if you hit any of the ones.
All right, yeah. Well, I think the new club until this week, the Sunshine Coast Wanderers, I think they probably were ranked too far down. On the flip side of that, the Wide Bay Buccaneers would probably come in too far up. They've just been getting pummeled every week. In Victoria, maybe Avondale. I'm guessing they seem to be shooting up. Just in Queensland, because it's top of mind, we're here. Ipswich Knights, I think, probably were ranked too high and maybe lost some players over the season. I'm thinking maybe South Hobart. I'm not sure what's gone down in Tasmania, but they were the highest ranked, flying high, good FFA Cup, all that sort of stuff, I believe. And they seem to be dropping off this season. Otherwise, nothing comes to mind. But and maybe Peninsula Power being put into the second league of the new Queensland second league, and they're undefeated in 10. How'd I go?
You did pretty well, actually. I think all of those that you mentioned are in the top 10, apart from probably one of them, which was South Hobart. But they're up there, just not in that top 10. So I'll run through a few of the names and give you a couple of the stats for their season so far. So we'll start with those that have moved up the rankings the most, and this is across all of the 198 clubs in our rank in the TPO rankings. So all 3 tiers of Australian, top 3 tiers of Australian football. So the biggest move has been Perth Glory Youth Team in the WA NPL, and they've played 11 games and won 8 of them, and they've jumped up a whopping 65 places on the TPO rankings in those 11 games. So they're sitting in third on the ladder in the WA NPL at the moment. Second on that list is Altona Magic in the Victorian NPL 2, and they're one that we touched on in one of our games of the week before. So they've jumped up 36 places, so they're sitting first at the moment in the NPL 2, or in their portion of the NPL 2. And the other one that you mentioned, which is up there, is Avondale in the Victorian NPL. So they're the third highest mover this year, and they're up to 20th at the moment. So they've moved up 11 places on the rankings. So they're the 3 biggest movers up the ladder. I'll give you the next 7. I'll just run through them without spending much time. But Peninsula Power, as you mentioned, in the FQPL, 11 wins from 11. So they're on a roll. South United, also in the FQPL, is an interesting one. I said I wouldn't spend time on it, but I'll just...
Can't help yourself.
I couldn't help myself. This one's interesting because South is only 7th at the moment in the FQPL out of 13 clubs, and yet they've had a huge move up the table. So clearly at the start of the season, based on their 2017 year, they were ranked very low. So even a reasonable or a mid-table start to the season has seen them jump a lot of places. So they're up there. Sunny Coast Wanderers that you mentioned, St George FC from New South Wales, Olympic FC in the Queensland NPL as well with 10 games undefeated, 11 games, sorry. Launceston City is a good one as well, so Tasmanian NPL, they're currently sitting in first place there with 5 games played and 4 wins, one of those being FFA Cup, I believe. And Adelaide Raiders from South Australia, so they're the 10 highest, or the biggest movers up the table in 2018 on the back of their good starts to the season. So
nice.
Yeah, probably some names that we've mentioned already and came up in a few of our games of the week. On the flip side of that is obviously the teams that have gone down the rankings and won't be happy to hear their names in this list. Top by quite a margin is the club that you mentioned, White Bay Buccaneers. 8 games played, 8 games lost. So they're down in 185th on the rankings out of 198 clubs. So not a good start. And not a good start to their existence, seeing as though they were created this year for the FQPL. The Cove from South Australian State League is another one. So they're 9 games played, they've won 1 and lost 8. So they've dropped 31 places on the TPO rankings so far and are down to 165th. And then the other biggest mover down is West Torrens Bacala from the South Australian NPL. And they're same stats as the Cove, 9 games played, 1 game won, 8 lost. So not a good start, and they're a long way down. Just to run through again the next 7 without hopefully spending time on them. I shouldn't even say that because you know I'm going to stop. Sunshine George Cross from Victorian NPL 2. Joondalup United WA NPL. Southwest Phoenix from WA in the Division 1. Croydon Kings from South Australian NPL. And this is the one that I'm going to stop quickly. They're ranked 37th now, but they started the season in 23rd, I think it was. So they were in the top 25.
Win the grand final too.
Yeah, so they were in the top 25, and they've played 9 games, 1-3, 1 draw, and 5 losses. So they're a long way down. Blacktown Spartans, New South Wales NPL 2. South Melbourne is an interesting name to be on this list. So they're the 9th biggest drop in the TPO rankings this season. And Ipswich Knights that you mentioned as well comes in at number 10, so they sneak onto that list as well.
There you go.
So yeah, those as I say, names that those clubs probably don't want to hear their names, but 2018 not looking good so far.
Well, Jake, actually I challenge you and anyone listening, Jake, are you able to put an image together, maybe those top 10 into one image, and we'll post that onto our Facebook and Twitter pages, maybe our Instagram as well, and people can go and check out that list as well. It's maybe, I don't know, I find that interesting. Maybe something we can update every so often.
I suppose that's doable. Now that you've asked
cool.
me.
All right. Well, yeah. Well, thank you very much. Now this show is running on time, good 24 minutes already. So let's run through these games. And Jake, again, you couldn't help yourself, and you had to go one extra game than I went. I was going to go 2 games, and I went, I'll go 3. I'll be that's probably the max, but of course you come back with 4 games.
I tell you what, I'll put it out there now. It's going to be recorded next week. I'll keep it to 2.
Okay, there you go.
I haven't
2
looked
games.
at the fixtures, but that's the challenge.
Okay, well you've got 4, so let's be really quick with these. You start off with your first 2 games, and then I'll come in.
All right, so the first one was an obvious one to me. It's a no-brainer. It's Bentley Greens versus Heidelberg, the 2 best clubs at the moment, highest ranked clubs in Australia outside the A-League. Bentley Greens ranked 11th, Heidelberg ranked 9th. They're predicted to finish 1st and 2nd in the Victorian NPL. Bentley Greens undefeated in 10 games now, and Heidelberg undefeated in 9. So, they're both, I guess you could argue, got the form, although they've dropped some points in a couple of draws. But look, I've been waiting for this one since the start of the season, giving their rankings, and Heidelberg going to slight favourites, 43% probability of winning, and Bentley Greens 34%. So should be a cracking game, and I look forward to that one. Mm-hmm. And next one, looking at Tasmania, I've got Launceston City in 160th ranked at the moment versus South Hobart 44th, and we just mentioned Launceston City is one of the clubs that's moved up the table the most this season so far. And if you look at just the rankings, it's so one-sided that you wouldn't give Launceston a chance. in this game. South Hobart, though, poor start to the season so far, and they're actually slipping down the rankings a bit. And look, they're only, I think, one win so far in the season. Launceston have picked up 3 wins and a draw from their opening 4. So, look, it'd be interesting to see. Launceston only given a 7% chance, but I think it'll be a lot closer than those numbers give them credit for.
Absolutely. Well, Jake, you're on a roll and you're moving through this quickly, so I'm just going to let you keep going. You finish off with the other 2 games.
All right. Next one, back to Victoria in the 2nd division here. I've got Moreland Zebras and Altona Magic. Moreland Zebras currently in 3rd in their league, and Altona are currently sitting in 1st. But Moreland Zebras has a higher TPO ranking, so they're actually coming out as the favourites. 69% chance of winning versus Altona Magic's 14.4%. But Altona Magic, that we just touched on, they're the 2nd highest mover up the TPO rankings this year. So based on that, it's kind of indicating that maybe they're ranked too low for the performances that they're putting out. So it's another one where the rankings will favour Moreland Zebras, but I'm actually saying that form would probably suggest that Altona will get the win on this one. So,
yep.
And Altona, I'm just interested to keep seeing how far they'll rise and how quickly.
Yep.
And my last game here is in ACT, and I've gone for Tuggeranong United against Woden Western. And Tuggeranong ranked 151st and Woden Western 180th. I actually have a bit of a soft spot for Tuggeranong just based on watching them in the FFA Cup in that first year in 2014. And they're looking good this year. 3 wins from 3, sitting in 1st on the table. Woden Western 2 wins from 3 and sitting in 2nd. So we're only 3 games in, but this is an early top of the table clash. And Tuggeranong favourites at 58%. And as I said, if they win, I'll be happy. Although we don't like to play favourites.
Cool. Well, all right. My 3 games. How could I go past Brisbane Olympic versus Brisbane Strikers? Olympic undefeated, sitting pretty top of the table, climbing up the rankings and up to 31st. Brisbane Strikers are still the best ranked Queensland team outside the A-League, and they're at 23rd on the table. Yeah. The only team in sort of the top 25. They started slowly, but are now coming back with some wins and now sitting 4th on the table. Now we've predicted a Brisbane Strikers win, 43.8% probability of winning away from home, but Olympic on form. You wouldn't want to vote against Olympic right now, would you? I watched Strikers on the weekend. They're good, but yeah, so are Olympic. So, man, I might actually, I'll have to see when this game is, might try and get down to Brisbane and see if it's on a Sunday. Next game. Now, this is in the Northern New South Wales New FM League, and it's up to round 5, and I feel a bit guilty because I have next to no idea how it's shaping up, how this league, I'm not really following it at all. I don't think we've included a game from this league in one of our previews. So that's the reason I've included this game. Thornton Redbacks ranked 167th versus Belmont Swansea United ranked 152nd. I picked this game out of this league because it's the closest contested game in terms of the probability. Thornton are sitting in equal 3rd on the ladder and predicted to finish 2nd, whereas Belmont Swansea are down in 8th spot and predicted to finish 4th. Now, my last game of the round is Fremantle City versus Southwest Phoenix. Again, this is another bit of guilt driving me to this decision. It's the WA Div 1. So Fremantle ranked 162nd, Southwest Phoenix 154th. Very close, this one. Fremantle City 38.7% probability, Southwest Phoenix 38.9%. So 0.2% favourites Southwest Phoenix away from home. After 2 rounds, Fremantle sit on 3 points, predicted to finish 6th in the ladder, while Southwest Phoenix are on 0 points, predicted to finish 8th. So I don't know how they're favourites there. I suppose they're just a higher ranking, but only just. So yeah, there's our games, guys. 7 games. As always, get ready for Instagram stories. Tomorrow we'll be throwing those up for voting. Yeah, apart from that, Jake, that's a bloody big show. How are you feeling?
I'm exhausted.
Yeah, cool, guys. Well, yeah, Instagram's really happening, and Jake's been really getting active on Twitter as well. So head over there if you're on Twitter. It's not for everyone, but we're making good use out of it at the moment, and he's posting a lot of just quick stats and updates to scores and stuff. Whereas Instagram's more photogenic and videos and stuff. Twitter is really just a quick little interactions and quick little snapshots. It's the same handle, I guess you'd call it, TPO Rankings. You can find us there, and Jake's really getting into that. Now, next week, predicted league tables for New South Wales, Tasmania, and some of the other major competitions around the country. We started off a few weeks ago with Queensland. I think we touched on Victoria, maybe WA. We'll go back and look at that. We're going to go on with some other leagues and basically look at where are the leagues, where are we, the TPO Rankings predicting that each team will finish for some of those major leagues. Jake, before we wrap up, anything else you'd like to mention?
No, I think I've talked enough tonight. Thanks, Cody.
Me too. Yeah, definitely. No, well, thanks for joining me, Jake. Guys, thanks for watching. Any questions, come on, start engaging with us. We want some questions. We're keen to get this going, keen to improve, all that sort of stuff. So we're on basically every channel, not every channel, but the major ones: YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, email. We've got the website, TPO Rankings. You know where to find us, guys. Thanks for watching, and see you in next week in round 10 or the Pecking Order Show. See ya.